Good morning and good afternoon or good evening to all the participants from wherever you are joining. Welcome to a masterclass. This is our 37th masterclass, and our topic for today is how to increase AR and AP efficiency with IDP. We have with us a subject matter expert, John Salick, and he is also the strategic AR advisor at Emagia Corporation. John, not taking too much of a time, I'd like to welcome you to get started with our masterclass for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Akshay, and welcome everyone. I have another interesting program for you here today, where we continue our exploration of intelligent document processing. So we'll have a quick introduction to emphasize the importance of IDP, which is really, in my opinion, a pretty remarkable breakthrough. And we'll define it. What is intelligent document processing? You know, that's one thing about IT is you get all these acronyms, people throw them around, but oftentimes have different definitions for the same acronym. So we'll set the stage here by reviewing our definition of what intelligent document processing is. And we'll get right into the benefits. And the reason I put that near the front here is the benefits are really impressive. And I think that needs to be addressed and explored right off the bat. And then we'll talk a little bit more, get into some detail of examples of how IDP has helped some very common order to cash processes and the accounts payable process. You know, it's almost like adding an additional staff member to the department in which you deploy it. So for example, it's like adding an extra person to your claims or deductions team, an extra person to your cash app team, an extra employee to your credit control, extra employee accounts payable. Think about what that might do for your departments, not only in terms of speed, accuracy, meeting deadlines, but in freeing up time to make more contributions, improving processes, dealing with difficult customers or difficult vendors, that demand exception processing, you know, things like that. We'll share with you a customer success story, wrap it up with a conclusion, and then field any questions you might have. So let's take a look at this. You know, first of all, when you talk about financial data, financial documents, I say they're numerous. Well, that's probably an understatement. They vary widely in format. Well, that's probably an understatement too, which is considered unstructured. The data comes in an unstructured format. Contains lots of information, which some of which you need, some of which you don't need, which makes data extraction difficult. Gartner estimates that about 80% of financial data arrives in an unstructured form. So it really can't be processed anymore until that data is put into a structured form. And it really can't be processed using automation until that data is put into a structured form. So this is an important kind of gateway of data entering your organization. So what are some of the key tasks in processing unstructured data? Well, first of all, you have to understand the context and use of the data. Is it a vendor invoice that goes to payables? Is it a customer purchase order? Is it a customer payment with remittance advice instructing you how to apply the payment? Is it a notice of a deduction? Why a customer is taking a short payment? So that has to be recognized and sort of classified. And then data needs to be extracted and, quite honestly, input into your ERP or other application for continued processing. So you need to extract all the data you need but only the data you need. So, for example, you get a customer remittance advice. Well, there's a lot of data there that you need to extract. What invoices of yours are they paying and how much against an invoice? But you don't need to extract the page numbers if it's a multi-page remittance. So this seems simple, obvious, but for a human being that's been trained and has some experience doing these tasks. When you think about automating it, these very simple rules have to be recognized. So the data needs to be understood, extracted, and input or key punched into the correct ERP application. So with the vendor invoice, you don't input it into your Cash App application and things like that. Again, as humans, we take this for granted and say, oh, yeah, well, that's obvious. Anybody knows that. But when you talk about programming, automation, these kind of simple overlooked facts are a challenge and need to be considered. So historically, we've used human beings to do this, and they could handle all this complexity and make these judgments, very quickly after some time on the job and with the proper training. Unfortunately, these roles also included a high volume of repetitious data entry. Sometimes I call it grunt work, just keying that stuff in all day or a good part of the day. Kind of detracts from the stimulation and enjoyment on the job. Intelligent document processing automates the handling of unstructured data. Great. We're all looking for automation to make our lives and our jobs easier. So that's what IDP does. A little deeper, again, maybe a more classic definition. IDP extracts and converts unstructured data into structured data. And again, downstream automation requires structured data. How does it do it? Well, a lot of the recent technology developments that you've heard and read about, artificial intelligence, machine learning, natural language processing, and even to some degree, robotic processing automation, although IDP goes way beyond RPA. So it starts with the source documents, the customer's remittance advice, a vendor invoice, a deduction notification. Those documents are scanned and the data is extracted. And of course, the documents are stored and available for anybody to refer to. At the end of the day, cognitive AI data extraction, which is what performs the intelligent document processing, is faster, cheaper, and more accurate than human beings. A little bit of a learning curve there, which is where machine learning kicks in. But even RPA doesn't do this. RPA is great with high volumes of the same documents in the same format. And the other nice thing about IDP is it accommodates multiple languages and currencies. So very useful if you're dealing in multiple economies. All right, let's get right to the benefits. And you can tell I'm very enthusiastic about this. So the benefits are huge. Even if IDP, when you first implement it, isn't working at peak efficiency and effectiveness, it's still very, very effective. Say, for example, you're here in the Northeast in the winter and the heating breaks down in your office. And the repair people come in and say, well, we can kind of make a quick fix, but it'll only bring the temperature up to 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, if it's currently 40 degrees Fahrenheit, that's great. It might be a few days till we can get it up to 70. Okay, come on in, And that's kind of one way to look at IDP. So what are the benefits? Well, first of all, substantial increases in employee productivity. If you're automating data entry, and that's 50, 60, 70% of somebody's job, well, tremendous productivity increase. And then the other thing that's really emerging and has emerged really the last year or two is it reduces staff attrition, which is very important because it's hard to find replacements. And you got to train them. You got to live with their inefficiencies as they climb the learning curve. So we all know attrition extracts quite a cost. And how does it do that? Well, it enriches the job. So instead of just key punching half the day, you're key punching maybe an hour a day, handling those exceptions, whatever. And the rest of the time, you're solving problems, making improvements to processes, addressing the individual needs of large customers or large vendors. That's more interesting, more challenging, and results in a more interesting and challenging job, which I use the phrase job enrichment. And of course, it increases accuracy, particularly as the IDP climbs its own learning curve through machine learning, and enables a faster response to customers. So you're getting speed, you're getting productivity, you're getting better accuracy, all good things. And if you look at the value chain at the bottom here, it helps improve your customer experience, increases productivity, lowers costs. What's the result of all that? Well, of course, higher revenue, higher profits. Eventually, ultimately, can't help but do that. All right, let's look at some specific applications here. And you can see on all these charts, we have that image of Gia, image of a young woman. Gia is the name of Emagia's digital assistants, AI-powered digital assistant. So what do we do? What can IDP do in deductions processing? Well, extract all the data you need to know about the deduction to resolve it. And it can extract this data from a vendor portal, your own EIPP portal, remit advice, a debit memo, an email, a document, whatever, and create deductions to be routed for resolution. Grabs all the key data that you need, customer number, invoice that's been short paid, how much it's been short paid, and reason code. Now, reason code's not always available with every deduction. A lot of times you can get it off the vendor portal. A lot of times it's contained on the remit advice, which is very helpful to the individual who has to research and resolve the deduction. And all this data is arrayed in a CSV file and fed into downstream processing, which is usually automated. So it's a big help there. Gets the deduction on its way, on its resolution journey very quickly. Cash App. Now, if this is probably the sub-process where IDP helps the most. And it does that by extracting the customer's remittance advice, remittance data, and putting it in a file usable for AutoCash. So think of the distinction here. Instead of the old days, where a human being has to read the remittance advice and key it in to your AR system to pay and close invoices, now IDP extracts all that data, puts it in a file, and the files run through your AutoCash engine. Boom. And if you have a good AutoCash engine, you're getting maybe 80, as high as 90+ % AutoCash hit rate. So that's productivity. And it can extract the remittance data from a wide variety of sources in a wide variety of formats. Portals, hard copy documents, emails, EDI transmissions, lockbox information, whether it be a file or whatever. And it can handle all these things, set up your file for auto cache, and run it through with a high hit rate. So very, very valuable in Cash App. How about credit control? Now, this might surprise you a little bit, because you think about credit control, you think about credit evaluation, risk assessment, setting credit limits for new customers, reviewing the existing credit limits of existing customers. You're going to bring it up, you're going to bring it down. You think, well, gee, that takes somebody who knows credit very well and is a very analytical role. How can IDP help there? Well, it sets the table for that ultimate credit decision. Customer submits a credit app online through your portal, faxes it, mails it, emails it, whatever, and extracts the data you need to do a credit investigation. The company's legal name, tax ID, address, that sort of thing. And again, no matter how it's transmitted to you. It also verifies important attributes like, does this company have a business license? Is it currently in effect? Is it on the OFAC list, which is the prohibited customers list? Downloads your credit bureau data. If you subscribe to Experian or Dun & Bradstreet, one of those, it downloads all that. Sets up a credit file for the individual company. And then that data can be arrayed in a file, in a format that facilitates its review. And nicely, it can even go a step further by taking parameters that you design and input. It can calculate a credit score. It can even calculate the credit limit, put in the estimated requirements and all this data, calculate a suggested credit limit. Of course, you'll want human review of the larger credit limits, but think of all the work that's being done. It sets the table for that credit decision. So let's look at accounts payable, kind of the other side of the fence here. Same thing. It handles all that data extraction and input. And it can get it from a vendor portal, from an EDI transmission, from an email, hard copy document, extracts the data you need, pay an invoice. You think of the three-way match, right? We need a vendor invoice, we need our own purchase order, and we need proof of receipt of the product or service. Well, IDP can extract all that information and put it in a file so that your payable system can say, hey, this vendor invoice is ready for payment, or this one is not because we have a mismatch here or missing information or whatever. Again, replacing a lot of keypunch and, of course, doing it much faster and ultimately more accurately. And it puts it all in a nice file, which is fed into your accounts payable system. Ready to go. Here's a very simple schematic here showing how IDP extracts the data and puts it in a file. And we keep saying it does that to facilitate further processing, downstream processing, which hopefully in most cases is automated, typically in your ERP. So, the data comes in on the far left there from customers, banks, credit bureaus, lots of different information, lots of different formats, whatever. IDP extracts that data, puts it in a file, and the files run through RPA. It's extracted and run through your ERP applications And this is where the time saving comes in. So it goes from entry into your organization in a disorganized mess to a neat structured data file, which then can be processed further, in most cases, via an automated system. Great. Share with you quickly a quick success story of one of our customers. It's a company, good-sized company, a medical product supplier, fair degree of complexity here. 45 countries, 15 languages, 16 bank accounts, multiple currencies. And they decided to establish a shared service center while digitizing their OTC. So no lack of ambition here. Those are two big projects to tackle simultaneously as well. But hey, that's what they did. And part of the solution was Emagia's intelligent document processing, executed by what we call an AI-powered digital assistant, that GIA image that you see on all these slides. And they used it for claims or deduction, cash app, and collections. And what was the value achieved? Well, a lot of things. But to me, the highlights were one in cash app, which is not surprising. Look at these auto cash hit rate increases. 95% in France. I mean, that's about as high as I've seen. And then the last one is overall went from 50 to 80%. Now you might say, well, gee, 80% is not that great. Well, when you're operating in 45 countries, 15 languages, 16 different banking relationships, a dozen plus currencies, 80% is pretty good, all told. And then we also talked a little bit about how IDP helps deductions. And by documenting the information around a deductor and then getting it out quickly to who's ever going to resolve it. And here, that resolution cycle time went from several weeks to 1 week. And really that's important because even with invalid deductions, where the customer's wrong and they owe the money that they short paid, if you don't bounce that back to a customer quickly and follow up to collect it, even if you're in the right, you won't be able to collect it. If it ages too much, gets too old, it just kind of evaporates into the mist and you don't recover it. So that can be a nice support of your net margin in profitability. Okay, so I've told you about the power of IDP and where it helps. What's our conclusion? Well, first of all, it's being used today. This is not, a vision of the future and 2030, this is what you're going to be saying. It's up and running today. And if you look at a totally manual operation, which I understand there's not so much of that anymore, it can increase productivity 70 to 90%. Enables faster response to customers, improves accuracy, right? We all appreciate accuracy, particularly in cash app. I often talk about two issues with cash application. It's unapplied cash and misapplied cash. Well, certainly in my experience, misapplied cash is much deadlier and causes tremendous amounts of rework than unapplied cash. Both should be minimized. So when we talk about accuracy, it has some real paybacks. And then this last point I want to emphasize again, with the Great Resignation, labor tightness, et cetera, it enriches jobs, takes away the grunt work. And ultimately that's going to lead to better retention of employees and a reduction in your attrition costs. Now, that's a kind of an emerging benefit that we didn't talk too much about 2 years ago, but has become very important today. Your questions. Before we get to the questions, just want to let you know, 2 weeks from today, our next masterclass session is going to be a little bit more about making it easy for customers to pay you. You talk about customer service, customer satisfaction. Well, part of that is accommodating a customer's preferences. And there's many ways a customer can pay you these days. It's to your advantage to be able to accommodate those. But let's go back to the questions. Akshay, any questions from the audience?
Right, John. So very nice presentation, very informative, John. Thank you very much for that. Our question is, what are the major challenges while processing finance documents?
It's the blizzard of financial information that comes into an organization, and the almost limitless degree of variation in the way that information comes into the organization and the way it's formatted. And IDP cuts through all that, puts it in a nice structured data file for further processing, which in most cases is automated. Huge benefit.
Thank you, John. And the next question that we have is, what do you think are the major advancements in document processing?
Well, it's this, again, it's the automated extraction of the data from this wide variety of formats that the data exists in within your company. Because really it's like kind of working through a blizzard to get all this variation narrowed down into a usable format and inputting it into your ERP for further processing. And as I mentioned at the outset, generally that was done by human beings because that was the only way you could manage this wide degree of variation. But unfortunately, it saddled team members with a lot of data entry, which after a while gets a little stale. So to me, that's a big step forward with IDP.
Thank you very much, John. We did talk about the improvements or increased productivity, right? And the next question is all about, like, what do you think are the other benefits for IDP, intelligent data processing?
Well, I think in addition to productivity, it's speed or acceleration, reduction of cycle times to apply cash, to resolve a deduction, to turn around a credit app. I mean, think of it. You get a potential new customer out there. They may be talking with 2 or 3 or 4 suppliers, some of your competitors, to say, hey, we want another source of supply. We'd like to open an account with you. Here's our credit app. Well, if you turn that around quickly and you get back to them and say, hey, good news. We've approved you for a $50,000 credit limit, and you beat your competitors to that point, your chances are pretty good of being that additional supplier. So the speed is important. Accuracy, over time, accuracy just improves everything, customer experience, productivity, that sort of thing. So those are 2 of the big benefits other than just pure productivity.
Thank you very much, John. I think we are on top of the hour now. Thanks a lot for the session, and I would like to thank the audience as well for joining. And again, just reiterating what John just talked about, we will have another interesting masterclass 2 weeks from now. The topic is Make It Easy for Customers to Pay You. And that's on 17th of March, again, Thursday, 8 a.m. Pacific time. And in the meanwhile, if you do have any questions, do reach out to us at info@emagia.com. Thank you very much, all of you, and thanks a lot, John.
Thank you, and we do welcome the questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
So long now.